Good morning.
Good morning.
I call this meeting of Lake Mary Toastmasters Club 6440 to order. Before we proceed with the meeting, please silence your cell phone. I would like to ask everyone to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Our club mission is to provide a supportive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. With that said, please help me welcome our Toastmaster, Mr. Gus D.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters.
Good morning.
Good morning. And guests, and we'll learn more about other members as we go on. Did you know that yesterday was the first day of fall 2014? It started at about 10:29 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Did you also know that for me, half of my life was spent not observing 4 seasons, but 2. Because I was born and raised in West Africa, so we only had 2 seasons. We had the dry season, when everything was dry, and we had the rainy season, when it got rainy and wet. So I have chosen the theme for today, the seasons of the year. We'll be talking about why do we have all these 4 seasons, which for the last years now I've had the privilege to really enjoy and appreciate the seasons of the year. So that's our theme. We're going to be talking about why do we have summer, winter, fall, and all the seasons that we love, so we'll be talking about those later. But right now, I want to go to our technical table. Our technical table are the ones that we guide all the speakers and the speeches and the evaluators today. So, to introduce our technical table, let me start with standing in for our grammarian is Alexander Balder. Alexander, grammarian.
As a grammarian, it's my function to select a word of the day to help build members' vocabularies. Each member, when called upon to speak, is encouraged to use the word of the day. Other members may gently rap on the table when they hear a member use the word. And with that said, the word of the day is sweltering. Sweltering is uncomfortable, hot. Example, the air condition was broken and it was sweltering in the office. Thank you.
Next will be our art counter with Diane.
Okay.
As you all know. Alright, as y'all counters, my function lists the filler words, you know, so, and, all the good stuff, double clicks. I'm gonna hear one of you today. I'm gonna hear one of you. So, let's have a clean run. And I'll give you my report at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. On the technical table would be the timer, Julia Kaufman.
I thought I was having a hot flash, but you can in here, or it's my turn. As your timer, I will keep track of time so that we keep on track and get out of here at 8:30 promptly. Our speakers have their set times, and 2 minutes before your speech is over, you'll get the green card. a minute before the yellow, and pay attention when you see the red, it's time to close it up if you haven't already. For our evaluators, you have 2 to 3 minutes. You'll get the green card at 2, the yellow at 2.3, and then at 3 minutes your time is up. I will give the report at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Matt.
There's a fine for those who will not use the word of the day, and I think that is how much?
25 cents.
25 cents that we add. Now, just before we start our speeches, let me just mention about the 50-50. Could you just talk about that, Julia, for a second?
I can. We have a lot of money in here, folks. If you want to get in and you haven't yet, it's $1 for 1 ticket, 2 for 3, and 8 for $5. So please, think about it. And I think our pot is up to about $12.
We shall move on with our prepared speeches for today, so that's the season of life. I think today when the Sergeant of Arms arrived, she made sure that the air conditioning is working, so there will not be sweatering in this room. To introduce our first speaker in this season of life, a new member that just joined our club, and she'll be giving her icebreaker speech. Please help me to welcome Nicole Castro.
Good morning, Master Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My life is an amazing story, and the journey has been both exhilarating and extremely dark. I grew up in a home with parents who loved and encouraged me. In grade school, I was active in soccer, basketball, cheerleading, and I excelled academically. When I was 13, I was in a horrible car accident. The back right tire blew on my uncle's Bronco, the car flipped 8 times, and my body was trapped underneath it and slid 15 feet on the pavement. I was airlifted to Orlando Regional Medical Center, and there it took the doctors 11 hours to clean the concrete out of my body. I remained in the burning tissue unit for almost 3 months. In the years following, I had about 20 surgeries, resulting in metal elbow, metal in my knuckles, metal in my hip, and it was during those years that my addiction to narcotic pain medication was formed. However, I still did well in school, and I received an academic scholarship to Florida State University, where I majored in exercise physiology. I jumped on this amazing opportunity to volunteer for a nonprofit organization called Unite for Sight. I went to West Africa for almost 6 months and traveled the entire country of Ghana, diagnosing eye disorders, participating in cataract surgeries, and also educating local villages on eye health care. When I returned from that amazing trip, I fell back in love with my high school sweetheart and gave birth to my beautiful son, Devon, in September of 2010. Little did I know that my relationship with his father would facilitate the darkness that I would live in for many years to come. Living in an emotionally abusive relationship, I used drugs as a coping mechanism for life. My battle with drug addiction left me hopeless. I felt as if I had nothing to offer this world, like I had no purpose for living at all. And in the midst of my suffering, I made very poor choices, and ultimately I ended up in jail. And it was there that I was taught about Jesus and salvation. And it's not like when I found Jesus, I was instantly cured or miraculously better. But for the first time in my life, I truly felt hope. I had tried to get clean and sober many times on my own, and I always failed, so I decided that I would give this God thing a try. When I found Jesus, I felt hope and freedom and peace. My life has been transformed by the renewal of my mind, and my dignity has been restored. I love God and others more deeply today than I could have ever imagined. I'm writing a story today full of life. I live not relentlessly striving to reach a specific destination, but daily enjoying the journey. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend, and I know that God has blessed me with unique gifts, and I'm so grateful to be able to enjoy them. I look forward to obtaining my MBA and ultimately choosing a career that allows the light of Jesus to shine through me. and I would love to share a poem with you guys that continues to inspire me. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be? Talented, brilliant, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so that others feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So I invite all of you to take my story and my experience and share it with anyone in your life who might be struggling with addiction or an abusive relationship, and let them know that there is always hope. Master Toastmaster.
Going for it. So.
Thank you. As we race with the time here, I'm going to introduce our second speaker. Maybe before that, some of you will wonder all the time why we have these different seasons of life, you know, spring, fall, summer. It took me a while. I really had to read different research, maybe 35 years ago when I started to come back to this country, and realized I have to live with these seasons. So I figured out why is it that I came to the country in the summer and my first child was born, and then it started to get cold. Well, actually, what happens that we have these seasons of life, it's the movement of the earth around the sun. The earth is tilted at 23.45 degrees and it goes around the sun. And we get the seasons depending on where the sun is facing and the earth is moving facing the sun. So that's how it comes in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere. So some friends of ours tomorrow are leaving to go south. They're going to Southern Africa because it's springtime down there. Can you imagine that? You know, we're going into fall and they're going into spring. Today is a very special season for Diana Malakowski because she is finishing her Competent Communication Manual. Too often, decisions that are contrary to our beliefs or that are adversely affect our lives are made without our inputs. Sometimes all it takes is for one person and one voice to inspire others to take up a cause and speak out about something. That is important to them. History has shown that just one small voice that begins in silence can grow to deafening proportions when it touches others' voices. So now our next speaker will show us that each of us can make a difference beginning with his or her own one small voice. Please help to welcome Diane Malakowski.
Thursday, September 18th, 2014. Dear Diary, oh, I am so angry I could spit. I spent this sweltering afternoon watching the Senate business on C-SPAN, and they're at it again. Isn't it enough that they've spent months, well, the little time that they do spend, in the Senate chamber with nothing to really show for it? And today, they have to hurry through the continuing resolution to fund the government through mid-December before they go on break yet again for count them, 4 more weeks, and come back and do nothing again. When I say they spend all this time in the Senate chambers, well, that is an absolute falsehood. Because I noticed that as each senator stood up to present and comment on the resolution and other important topics, the entire chamber was noticeably empty. No one was on the floor listening to any of the speakers. Only the president and a few interns seemed to be present for hours until it was time to vote. Now, I'm not a genius, but if you haven't listened to what's in the bill and you haven't listened to objections or supporting measures for the bill, how the hell can you vote in good conscience for a bill that you don't know anything about? Don't read the bill, vote the abominable care, and of course, don't subject yourselves to the provisions that you set for everyone else. And don't forget to postpone the imminent, abhorrently expensive details until after the elections. But today really got me, because today, under the pretense of funding the already approved government programs until mid-December, they had the audacity to hide funding for the president to launch his retaliation, or whatever the heck the politically correct word is, against terror and ISIS. They don't know what he's going to do with the money. They don't know his plan. They don't know if it'll work. Is it a war? Isn't it a war? Do they have any answers? Do they have any questions? No, they can't discuss what they really think until after the election. People might not like what they want to do and may not vote for them, so they hide it in the CR like cowards, and they pretend it's part of the budget, and they go about their business until after the election. Now, Diary, I know that I'm only one person, and I have only one small voice. But how I wish I could project it so that the whole darn government would listen and start actually caring about the country instead of about themselves and whether or not they get to stay in power and get reelected. If only I could stand up before the Senate and speak to them and all the people in the balconies. Could my one small voice actually make a difference? And what would I say if I had the opportunity? I think about it. What would I say? Mr. President, senators, citizens, fellow Toastmasters and guests, until the past few years, I respected the Senate as a sacred body of Congress, and I respected its members as legislators and as faithful executives of the law. I believed you, that you meant it when you took the oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. But your actions belie your words, and you have lost my respect and the respect of many others. And I come here to tell you that you need to change some things to regain our respect, to fulfill your duty to our country. Now, I know I'm only one lone person with one small voice, but the voice I hear inside me is screaming to be heard, and I believe that there are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of other small voices that also want to be heard. We think that we vote with our voice, but that isn't how it happens anymore. Votes are bought and paid for by big interest groups and super PACs today, and your loyalty is to them and not to the people like me who you're supposed to serve. Today, I was disgusted by your cowardice. At a time when America is threatened by Islamic jihadists, you couldn't even stand up and discuss the funding for the president's so-called plan to reduce the threat of ISIS. Now, there's an election in another month, and can't take the risk of actually telling people where you stand. Instead, you slyly slip it into the continuing resolution to show the support, the amount that you needed, without committing yourselves before the election. But don't we as voters and citizens have a right to know where you stand? Don't we need to know how you feel about military involvement in Iraq and Syria? Do you have the right to deny us the ability to vote with a choice that is informed and accurate? I am listening to people talking in the Senate chambers, and I see none of you colleagues speaking or listening to the other people. You were disrespectful, self-righteous, and neglectful of your duties and responsibilities, and I am shocked that you have no sense of purpose to this country, but only to yourselves. You won't pass a bill to secure our southern border because you're more concerned about commanding an army of illegal voters than in preventing Islamic jihadists from coming into our country through them. In fact, Harry Reid won't even pass any laws, hundreds of bills that are sent by the House, because he and the President personally don't like what's in them. And you're okay with that? No resistance, no discussion, no following the law that you have sworn to uphold? You call that democracy? When you finally do actually pass a bill, you're all like alcoholics who can't wait for their next drink. You have to add billions of dollars in new pork to any bill that doesn't even have anything to do with the bill. And who cares that it's wrong? It's about getting kudos from your supporters and your special interest groups. And it's about your personal glory, your personal ideology, your personal power and status. And if it helps you get reelected, who cares about how much it costs or where the money comes from? It goes on and on and on. But it's time that you hear what we are thinking. Even if it is only my one small voice speaking to you in the distance, it's time for you to listen. Can you hear the small voice that you used to hear before you were jaded by power and corruption? Can you hear the myriads of small voices like mine that are yearning for you to do the right thing, no matter the consequences to yourselves? Today, I beg you to listen and review your oaths that you made to the country, and all of us here in this chamber, and throughout the country. Listen and take guidance, if it's only from my one small voice.
And my one small voice. And my small voice. And mine. And mine. And mine. And mine. And mine.
Like I said, we're all out here watching and waiting for you to do the right thing, to make right decisions for the country and her people. Remember, you're here to serve at our pleasure. And though you may only hear one small voice at a time, remember, it just takes one voice to start the chain reaction, and others will also be heard. Be careful, because eventually, when many small voices come together, they can become one giant roar. Master Toastmaster.
She did it. I can't believe she did it. Timing. She did it.
The yellow card.
No, Brian.
I was like, that says yellow.
I mean, that's an accomplishment.
I think she deserves a ribbon for that.
I did. You had 9, 8 to the 7 to 9. You had
Yes, I knew I could.
7 to 9.
You have, see, I'll go without you. I got nothing.
You got nothing.
I got nothing.
Go out.
Time.
Our third prepared speech for today is from the Storytelling Manual. Let's get personal about our stories. Telling an original story that is based on personal experience. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, please help me to welcome distinguished Toastmaster Stephany Burneyburn.
You've all heard this. Sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never harm you, right? Our parents taught us this to keep us from engaging in foolish fights and conflicts. Here's another one that my mother especially always said. You don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all, right? Well, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. I learned that lesson the hard way. It was nearly disastrous the way I learned it. Picture this. We're off from school, my friends and I, going up to our favorite haunt, the Museum of Natural History. 5 fresh-mouthed teenagers. We took the subway to get there because there was an entrance directly from the subway into the museum. We're riding along, having a good old time, and we spied some unusual but telling individuals. We tried not to stare, but stare we did. 3 extremely masculine looking women. Is exactly what we did. This went on for a while. We kept slight glances, looking, till finally one of them got up, lumbered over to us, took a wide-legged stance in front of us, and growled. What are you looking at? Trick question. Ponder wisely before you answer. Consequences could be dire. If you say nothing, it could be counted as you calling me nothing. If you answer truthfully, I don't know. Equally horrible. The correct answer, the only choice, say nothing. Drop your head in submission and be quiet. Which is what we did. Trains rattling along. See our station is coming in. Got up, go to exit the train. Now I can't remember exactly what month it was. It couldn't have been sweltering heat because we were in boats sometime in the winter or spring of New York. Something came over us. Came over me. All at once, we decided to hurl some gender insults at these individuals, counting on escaping from the train in safety. Blah, 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 blah. And we are laughing off, and then I heard it. Let's get them. They barreled off that train like pissed off Brahma bulls. Coats and all, we were leaping turnstiles, hurtling through the museum doors, knocking aside guards, people, anything in our way. We're going, they're pursuing. We're running, they're pursuing. Now, I know my way around the museum fairly well. One of my favorite haunts, went there all the time. Split up! We split up, figured they can't chase all of us. They decided to come after me and my sister. I guess because we had the freshest mouths. We're gonna get them, and when we do, all I can hear, I'm saying, come on, monkey, I call them. Let's go, let's go. We're running, we're leaping past all my exhibits, all the wonderful collections, we're going. I know some back stairwells, I know some back rooms where they keep props and they keep displays, things that they've taken down, things they're not using. So I decided to go down those corridors, little used corridors. Going down. I'm running, listening. They're still behind us. You can hear the snorting. What are we going to do? Finally, we have run out of rooms. We have run out of corridors. The only way of escape was this ominous, huge door with reinforced state steel locks. They stopped following us. the way. Yay! Jubilation! Elation! But the leader, by now there was only 2 of them. The heaviest one had dropped out. But that gruesome twosome, they were not giving up. The leader smelled our blood, and they said, I think they went down there. They're coming in our direction. This door. Tried it. Of course it wouldn't lock. It's locked. What are we gonna do? Well, push on it. It's not giving. Now, I want you to know, at this time, I had absolutely no relationship with God. A self-proclaimed heathen, agnostic, if you will. But I quickly sought one that day. Oh, Lord, please. If you're not, I'll never. I implored every deity of the Lord helped us. Tried it, and miraculously, I kid you not, that door opened. We ran in, pushed it shut, heard it click. We were safe. Oh God, there is a present and real God I discovered that day. Slid down the door. We said, let's hide. They went in there. They pounced on that door, banged on it. They could not get in. We hid. And we hid. I can't tell you how long we stayed in our sanctuary. We did not want to come out. When we finally summoned up enough courage to leave, we went out. But before we did, we reflected not only on the goodness of the Lord, but the lesson that we learned, and promised from that day forward we would not ever name call again. And for the most part, we kept that promise. In fact, my sister Monkey would not, until the day she died, would not even engage in gossip. She wouldn't listen to it or speak it. That's how frightened we were, and that's how powerful this lesson was. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but so will words hurled at the wrong party.
Timer, 1 minute on the clock, please.
Yeah.
Real.
50 years ago, and I remember it. Yes. No position to fight. No.
The next section of our meeting is table topics, and I want us to welcome Stephen Morgan as the lead facilitator.
Thank you, Gus. For our guest table topics is when we learn to work on our extemporaneous speaking skills. I have some topics. I'm going to be picking on people. They don't know what I'm going to ask. They don't know who I'm going to ask. They have 30 to 60 seconds, and our timer will be holding up cards, to give an answer. These skills are useful when you find yourself being asked those strange questions at the most inopportune times. Therefore, with our theme of seasons of the year, of these, let's see, is your favorite season football season, or baseball season, or basketball season, or a hockey season? Ooh, Jorge.
Master, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. My favorite season has always been when baseball season's over. As I was talking with Carrie earlier, because that signals the start of football season, or very little overlap there, which is my favorite time because then I get to watch my UCF Knights. Take
Go
on-
Knights.
Yes, take the field again. And it signals the start of the cooler weather coming, so we're starting to get out of that sweltering heat. We know when football season starts, that the weather's about to change, and it's nice today to go out to the games, watch your football, pick your fantasy teams, and go spend your weekends with your friends watching football on Saturdays and Sundays. That's my favorite season of the year. That's your table topic master.
Would you prefer to be sweltering or freezing? Oh, honey, you're volunteering. Okay, go ahead.
I would definitely prefer to be sweltering. And the reason is I grew up on a tiny island where it was 40 degrees Celsius on a regular basis and 100% humidity. So I'm very used to it.
Okay. Everyone say you're trying to go, what's that Fahrenheit? Oh, rabbit season or duck season? Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck were always arguing it. Which one was better? Suzanna. What's that? Or rabbit season?
Yeah.
What Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck were always arguing about on the cartoons. You can go off into anything if that doesn't fit anything that makes sense to you.
That doesn't fit anything to me. Well, I can talk about anything else and I won't get penalized. Okay, so I'm gonna go off on a rampage because I'm a new member and I'm kind of nervous about my new speech. Hopefully, on that day it won't be sweltering. So,
Nice.
pray for me.
So which would you prefer, the dry season or the wet season then, Martin?
Steve, good morning, everyone. In terms of whether or not I appreciate a dry season or a wet season, I think I'll go with a dry season. The amount of clouds in the sky when I wake up in the morning really has an effect on my mood. I don't know if that does the same for everybody else, but I'm one of those people where I like to see bright blue sky, just as we have quite often here in Florida. So for me, it's a dry season. Thanks.
Would either of our guests be willing to take one for the 30 to 60 seconds? You do not have to, but I'm willing to offer one. Easy. Either one of you? No?
Pass.
Hey Gus, I guess I left your work cut out for you, keeping them coming back. But I just shall pass the baton back and let you continue on with
So we talked about seasons today. When you think about the 4 seasons of the year and October, it's really one of those seasons in fall where there are lots of activities. If you live in Sanford, they've already started talking about Oktoberfest. You know, that's the time people are going to go out and, you know, depending on your social interest, there are lots of activities that go around in Florida. So I always look forward to Oktoberfest. But also the seasons of the year affects your wardrobe. You know, that was my greatest change or shock. I told you earlier, 29 years ago when I came to this country. I came in the summer, so I brought my African clothes. Then it was December and I realized, no, those clothes don't work here in the winter. So I had to make adjustments. But I look forward to the spring when you go shopping, and my wife loves to do that. So I started to get understanding that even your wardrobe is affected by the 4 seasons of the year, and then of course summer and back to fall. But also think about the time change. You know, in a couple of weeks' time, it's going to come up. Again, the seasons affect the time change, the sunlight, and also the food. We actually now have a restaurant that goes by that name. If if you're thinking about how am I going to do the seasons of the year and know what's the right food to eat, well, just think about going to seasons 52. It will cost you some, but you'll be able to have a great meal and understand the seasons of the year. So, lots of stuff to be thinking about as you think about football season, shopping season, flowers, and all of the things that go with it. At this point in our meeting, I'm going to turn to our Master Evaluator, and she will now come up. Let's welcome Carrie Bird.
We are now moving on to our educational portion of our meeting, where we will give evaluations for the speeches and find out how we did with our timing and our counting, etc. Our first evaluator is Suzanna L, and she will be evaluating Nicole.
Thank you, Madam Master Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and especially Nicole. Nicole, this was your icebreaker speech. So for anybody who does not know what that is the first speech you do in a club where you talk about who you are. And although by the time that you got up here, the room was no longer sweltering, you brought the heat right back. And the power that you had in your speech was fantastic. It was amazing. That was not an icebreaker speech, and I'm pretty sure that most of the room would agree. That was not icebreaker level. You were well beyond that. There are a few things that you did extra well. You brought eye contact. You made contact with, I'm sure everybody in this room at one point felt that you were looking at them as you spoke. Very advanced skill. You also had a very well-organized speech. Even though it was chronological, you picked just the moments that supported what your point was. Well constructed. You had vocal variety. It was not a monotone. You used your quiet times. You used your louder, more powerful times. You used your voice very well, and we heard you throughout the whole speech. Great volume. You did not use your notes. That was a fantastic job on an icebreaker as well. A lot of times we use our notes still for that icebreaker, and I noticed that you brought them as your crutch, which makes sense with a quote. But you had that quote memorized too. One of my favorites. To the letter, had it memorized. You did not need the notes. You did not need the lectern. So I'd say from now on, move this out of your way. You do not need it. It's in your way, and then we can't see you as much. But the few things that I have are just minor little things that you're going to refine as you keep practicing. Just refining your hand movements and your body movements, refining your vocal variety, adding in specific pauses. But these are going to come with you with your different speech manual speeches. You're not going to have a problem with that at all, and they're already strong. So you did a fantastic job. You are going to go so far with your speaking career, and I really hope you choose to use your speaking for a powerful message to change the world. You can do it.
Our next evaluator is Ernst U, and he will be evaluating Diane's.
Mr. Toastmaster, Diane, and fellow guests. Diane used a sweltering subject. And I don't know whether I was coming or going. This reminded me of a story where they brought Grandpa to the hospital and he was about to die. The whole family rushed over there. And the doctor came out and said, "You know, Grandpa is still breathing, but I'm sorry he's brain dead." And Grandma said, "Wow, I didn't know we had a liberal in the family." I agree. I agree on the overall subject of what she says and where Diane was coming from, and congratulations, because she not only finished her 10th speech, but also touched on a subject which normally I wouldn't dare to touch on, which is politically motivated or religiously motivated. I feel that in Toastmaster we need to talk about all different subjects, and I applaud her to have spoken about it. But I really felt one of the salient points here in the speech and the subject is not to use any notes. And I think that has to do with the fact that if you do not use notes, you improve your credibility about a subject which you need to discuss, especially as highly explosive or sweltering as with a political overtone. And I hate to say, but I am walking on the same side of the street like you do. What I would have done is, and I know you use props and sitting down, rather than sitting down, I would have really come over here and kind of explain watching C-SPAN. And can you believe, out of the 100 senators, there were only 5 watching, and used a slow tone of voice. I think it would have resonated with a lot more people and would have kept it. And I agree, anybody watching C-SPAN and can see what is going on will wonder how decisions shall ever be made. But anyway, overall, it was a great subject. I would have liked it to be a little bit more focused so people can appreciate what is going on there and not to use any notes. And I think that's the main thing in the speech, because it's going from here to here to here and a lot of reading. And when we talk about these power of persuasion, we should not use notes because it comes from our heart. Diane, thank you.
Our third evaluator for today is Erika B, and she will be evaluating Stephany's speech.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests, and especially Stephany. We snuck in here just in time today. That we were sitting together to make this very fluid. The title of your speech was Lessons Learned. This is not the